Good morning, everyone from CILT Singapore. Thank you for joining us at today's webinar. Today's title of this webinar is Leveraging AI, Data Analytics, and Cybersecurity for Supply Chain Resilience. Joining us today, we welcome our esteemed speakers from across the various disciplines. We have Dr. Li Dong from NTU, Nanyang Technological University, Mr. Ng Xiang Tian from Country Foods, and Mr. Eddie Singh from CILT, as well as his consulting business. Today's session, we will be talking quite clearly on a couple of topics because it's such a wide topic. We'll focus on machine learning applications, supply chain resilience framework, and risk management through the AI and data-driven decision making. I think we all know that today we're living in a world whereby we need a lot of data to support us and help us to be more efficient and more effective in the decision making and process management in order to anticipate and stay resilient. To get started, I would use one quotable quote from one of my friends. And my friend said, Edward, AI will not replace you. It's only the person and the company who know how to use AI will replace you. I said, okay, well, that's a pretty good wake-up call. So I think we are living in a world that we have to live with AI. And using that word, I think that company who invented this as a brand, we should use AI as a co-pilot in order to help us to be more effective. So today's discussion, we'll be looking at how to build the agility and resilience through this leveraging of the right tool, and how to enhance our decision-making and anticipation. And with all this data in place, how is the cybersecurity in our supply chain and the data supply chain be able to help us to do that? So that's why we have today's the speaker. Because from today's speaker, we have a mix of good and esteemed academics who look at the whole framework, the structure of that, and be able to see things and be able to give us a clear wake-up call. And from the question you all submitted, you are very eager to hear from a practitioner point of view. And that's why we have Mr. Ng, who has been running this supply chain and various complex logistics on his application, how he used this tool to assist him and his teams and organization to entire supply chain. It's not just logistic, it's supply chain. He'll talk through that, what is supply chain management. And then from Eddie, he is going to share with us the practical application, the steps we need to take. What are the first steps and what are the things? And he picked up one very interesting question from the early submission on how the organization is able to work together to make this possible. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Dr. Li Dong to share. Dr. Li, a quick introduction. He is from the Nanyang Technological University. He is the senior lecturer and deputy director, focusing in Master Science Supply Chain program. His PhD, it's from the famous and reputable operation management from Rotterdam School of Management, Erasmus University. And before coming to NTU, he served as a professor at the Lingnan College, Sun Yat-sen University, as a senior scientist, and also he is a senior scientist at our A*STAR. So without further ado, I'll hand the floor over to Dr. Li Dong. Dr. Li.
Hi, thank you, Edward. Good morning, everybody. Maybe I just share my screen now. Okay, can it be seen clearly? Okay, let's get started.
Yes.
I'm very happy to have this chance today to talk about supply chain resilience and talk about data lakes and AI in supply chain management. So currently I'm directing the supply chain engineering program, Master of Science in Nanyang Technological University. And my personal research interest, including 3 dimensions along supply chains: innovation and resilience and sustainability. Basically, for innovation, I study how supply chains can support business to create new business models. For example, like securitization, platform-based operations, supply chain finance. And also, I studied how to leverage new technologies, including data analytics, machine learning, AI, and optimization models to better support supply chain decisions. And also, another two important pillar is resilience and sustainability. Of course, that's my overall research spectrum. And today, my topics, including the three components. First, let's talk about the definition of supply chain resilience. And second, let's talk about the framework that tell us how to build supply chain resilience. And lastly, we talk about technology, the role of technology. What is the role of data and AI in building supply chain resilience? I think the first one is also very important because whenever we talk about supply chain resilience, you could see many different kinds of keywords like resilience, robustness, agility, right, and many more. But what could be a clear definition of that? It's very important to know that. And based on this, let's talk about how to build supply chain resilience with a unified and systematic framework. So first, some background knowledge here. So since COVID-19, a lot of companies, including Apple, Amazon, Tesla, they all suffer all kinds of supply chain disruptions. That's why supply chain disruptions, supply chain resilience becomes so important today. And also for Singapore, because of the serious consequence of supply chain disruptions, and both companies and government also call for building and enhancing supply chain resilience. So that's why we have this webinar today. And first, let's talk about the definition of supply chain resilience. What is that? So I think let's just make it very simple. And supply chain resilience have two kinds of meanings. So it is the ability for a supply chain to withstand and recover quickly from disruptions. So first, withstand. Second, recover quickly. Okay, that's the ability for a supply chain to do these two kinds of jobs. And for a vulnerable supply chain, usually the performance under disruptions like this. Once there's disruption, the performance of the supply chain will drop dramatically in a short period of time. And after some time, it starts getting better and better, and finally, it recovers to the normal status. So that's the typical process of the performance dynamics for vulnerable supply chains. However, let's see we have a kind of two stages. First, from here to here is the supply chain just withstand or absorb the shock of disruptions. And finally, it takes some time to recover, right? That's why I have two stages. That's why supply chain resilience have two kinds of abilities. And for resilient supply chain, actually the performance will be different. So first, although there's disruption, but the supply chain can still keep functioning for a certain period of time. And of course, after some time, maybe the performance will be impacted. And however, it takes a much shorter period of time to recover to the normal conditions. And after that, it even becomes stronger. They can thrive. So actually, they both have two kinds of period. First, absorb the shock and then recover. However, the performance of the supply chain for a resilient supply chain will be very different compared to a vulnerable supply chains. Okay, and we call the first time period time to survive, and the second period is time to recover. Of course, supply chain resilience have many metrics to measure its level of a level of the resilience. However, if you talk about the operational metrics, the time to survive and time to recover are the most important two metrics that can quantify how resilient is a supply chain. Okay, so that's the definition. So next, let's talk about the framework. Then how do we build supply chain resilience? Generally speaking, we have a framework called mitigation, preparedness, response, and recover. It's a cycle for general management for disruptions. So what's the meaning? Here, I give you an example. For example, here our neighborhood lies, let's say, along a river. And if the disruption occurs, we see a river will overflow to a neighborhood and we'll see water flood. That will be disruption. And how do we manage this disruption? So first time, what we do is to do mitigation. Mitigation means we de-risk of river overflow. And what we do is here we build a canal embankment. Of course, the higher we build, the lower the risk, the lower the chance that the water will overflow to our neighborhood. So this is called mitigation. Mitigation means we reduce the possibility that the disruption will occur. And second is called preparedness. So once we do have a river overflowing, we need to have, let's say, sufficient and food and like sandbags to deal with this water flow and flood. And also, more importantly, we need to have a clear planning. This is called business continuity planning. Based on this planning, we know clearly what to do, and we have the sufficient resources to deal with this issue. So this is called preparedness. Preparedness means we are well prepared if there's a disruption. We know what to do. We have the resource to execute our plan. Okay, and third stage will be response. Once the impact is corrected, of course, we need to respond to the disruption. Basically, in response, we just execute or it's trigger the application of a BCP. We will just do the response activities like here to rescue, to have evacuation based on the BCP. Because in the BCP, we know for different kind of scenarios, what should we do? That should be the optimal way how we do it. And finally is recover. So once the river is gone, we try to rebuild the facilities and get back to normal life. Okay, so this will be the general framework for managing disruptions. And for supply chain resilience, we can really apply this overall framework to supply chain resilience. Of course, there are some specific meanings for supply chain management. For example, here we have a supply chain, and then now we have a COVID-19. COVID-19 might cause city lockdown. We call this risk events. And if we have a supplier which is located in such a city which is locked down, our suppliers will be impacted. Then we say disruption occurs. And because suppliers are disrupted, we can not get sufficient materials or components from the supplier. That's why our own production is affected. And then we have a shortage in our supply chain, and consumer welfare is affected. So this entire process, how supply chain resilience, how supply chain disruption occurs, and its impact the final consumer's welfare. And to deal with this issue, we can build 3 defending lines based on mitigation, preparedness, and response. The first defining line will be mitigation. So for supply chain, the most important mitigation strategy is diversification of your network. We could have multi-sourcing, multi-shoring, multi-mode of transport, and multi-channel of fulfillment of our customer orders. It's very important. And second, preparedness, we talk about redundancies in inventory and capacity and its flexibility of the entire system. So with this on hand, we can prevent an event from causing a shortage or reduce the size of the shortage that occurs. That's called preparedness. And more importantly, we need to have BCP, right? BCP is a business continuity planning. Based on this plan, we know clearly what to do. And third one will be response. Here I put response here. The most important capability is agility. Because the faster you can respond to disruptions, the less impact of the disruption will cause to your supply chain and your consumers. And of course, if you don't have any mitigation, you are not well prepared, you can't be agile in responding to the disruptions. That's why it's a holistic and systematic framework. Okay, so for agility, for response, we need to do reconfiguration of supply chain networks. We need to do rescheduling, production scheduling, and shipping, also to do rerouting. Okay, so this is the entire general framework for supply chain resilience. And in our day-to-day operations, how do we manage supply chain risk? So first, we need to monitor the status. Although right now our supply chain is very good and nothing happens, but we have the ability to monitor its status. And second, we need to have the ability in anticipation. We can do risk prediction both on the demand side and supply side. And also we can effectively work with our partners, our suppliers, and downstream partners in the entire supply chains to deal with this supply chain disruptions. Okay, this will be the overall systematic framework for building supply chain resilience. So finally, let's talk about the role of technology. So what DataX, machine learning, AI can do in building supply chain resilience framework. We have different kinds of data analytics techniques. For example, we have descriptive analytics. This can help us to tell us what has happened or what is happening. For example, we do visualization, data storytelling with data analytics. We can design supply chain dashboard. We can show the real-time status of the entire supply chain end to end. We know the inventory levels. We know the status of shipment. We know the status of customer order fulfillment. Okay, that's first step. We could also have diagnostic and predictive analytics. So diagnostic data analytics tell us why did it happen, and predictive analytics tell us what will happen. We can use machine learning and deep learning to make demand forecasting and demand sensing. We can detect the risk. We can also find out the reasons for revenue growth, decline, things like this. Okay, that's the application of diagnostic and predictive. And also, we could have prescriptive analytics. So prescriptive analytics tell us what is the best action to do. Relying on optimization models, we can design an optimal supply chain network. We can also try to optimize our inventories and different positions of the supply chains, also to do optimal scheduling and routing. And finally, we have generative analytics as well. Nowadays, we have Gen AI. We can build AI agent to automate the entire planning decisions, which is built on manual process before. Okay, so that's actually, we can use different levels of data analytics to help us to solve different kinds of problems, right? And for example, and when I work in A-Star, we have this technology called Supply Chain Control Tower. And in Supply Chain Control Tower, we can do supply chain mapping, because many companies, they only know their tier 1 suppliers. However, if you have an end-to-end supply chain mapping system, you know what is the tier 1, tier 2, beyond tier 1. You have end-to-end visibility. Most of the time, you can solve many problems as well. Now, so within the supply chain control tower, we can monitor the risk. We can also work with suppliers and provide smart decision support into the system. Okay, and also using data and AI, one of the most important applications in supply resilience is we do business impact analysis, or sometimes we call it stress testing. Stress testing means we just build a digital twin of a supply chain. You can call it a digital twin or virtual twin of supply chains. And we can really do experiment, because we don't know what will happen. So there are so many different kinds of disruptions. And doing experiment with your physical supply chain is too costly to do that. That's why we can build a digital twin or virtual model of the supply chains and do thousands of different kinds of scenario-based planning. For example, there's the supply chain disruption in tier 2 supplier for 7 days. And what will be the impact on our financial metrics, on operational performance of this disruption if we do nothing? And secondly, what can we do? Are we going to source from another supplier with a nearer, which is nearer to us, but it's more expensive? Or we try to wait for its recovery? We can compare the cost between different kinds of scenarios and make the smart decisions. Okay, that's how we do business impact performance analysis with this data analytics and AI. Okay, that's all for my talk. I think our next 2 speakers will provide more specific use cases and applications from the practitioner's point of view. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Lee. Very clear in laying the framework and the structure of how the various things is working through. I think the 2 key points, which besides the prediction and all those, you also put one of those things we talked about in the previous webinar, which is the digital twin, how it is being used and how could be used and applied, and using this data analytics, machine learning, all of those into practice. So that's very nice laying the track for Mr. Ng, who will be talking about the practitioner point of view and when he's managing this very, very complex supply chain. So Mr. Ng, he is a highly accomplished leader with over 2 decades of experience in practical management and operation in the supply chain and logistics. So he is now serving as the head of logistics for Country Foods, and he also has another position, which is Director Operations Strategic Partnership, Planning and Transportation. So at Country Food, which is a subsidiary country of SATS, that they are doing all kinds of food supply chain, because we all talk about, well, everyone is looking for food. And from his point of view, is in a very clear sense in today's very interesting and challenging environment, how he is managing this with the support of this kind of data analytics, machine learning, and AI to help him to be effectively managing that. So without further ado, I hand the floor over to Mr. Ng. Thank you, Mr. Ng.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, so I'm from Country Foods, and I'm going to talk about how we see supply chain resilience framework and how do we manage them at our place. So before we begin, I think we need to give a little bit of context to who is Country Food and what we do, so that in whatever I go to say later, it's going to make sense and give some context to what we how we deal with the situation here, right? So for a start, who are we? Country Foods is a wholly owned subsidiary by SATS, and we are one of the Singapore's largest food importer in terms of frozen protein, right? And our purpose, vision, and mission is there, but I just want to bring your attention especially to the mission statement and the photos you see there. We serve two very big customers. One is SATS Catering, which is serving the airlines that is flying in and out of Changi Airport. So most of the in-flight meal, 80% of the in-flight meal of all the airlines coming in and out of Singapore is served through SATS Catering. And much of the raw materials are from Country Foods, right? And if you see the picture in the vision, the other biggest customers that we serve is the defense in Singapore. The food served in the military camps are provided by SATS Food Services, and we provide most of the raw material as well. So if you look at the mission statement, a resilient supply chain is one of our mission statements. So that is one of the main job that I'm doing here, right? Like I mentioned, we are one of the largest protein importer in Singapore. We do approximately 75,000 metric tons of frozen import a year. We do mainly 40-footer reefer containers, so that works out to be on average about 240 to 50 containers a month. On busy month, we expect to see something close to 300 40-footer reefer containers. So that's the kind of volume that we deal with. We buy from across the globe. Brazil largely. We also buy from the States, and in the region, Indonesia, Thailand. So these are our main suppliers across the world. Just a show of what are some of these products that Country Food sell. Unfortunately, it's only available in Singapore for the current moment. So friends from overseas, we look forward to export to your country. That's work in progress now. So next, I'm going to touch what is supply chain resilience framework. I think the previous speaker has spoken at length on the framework. I'm going to come from a practitioner point of view. If you just Google and based on a framework that the previous speaker spoke about as well, you are no short of a framework to refer to. There are many different types of supply chain resilience framework that you can take reference, but it is very subjective, case to case. It really depends on your business, the extent of your business, and how you want to invest in looking at this resiliency framework. So I'm not going to belittle this framework, so I'm not going to talk about these frameworks per se. Rather, I'm going to bring you through the learning process and the thoughts that we have here at Country Foods and SATS. What you see is the various events and incidents that has happened over the years. Essentially, the question is, what did we learn, right? I think some key lessons learned here is we need to know our chain. As the word suggests, supply chain, you really need to know your chain end to end. Where are your items coming from? The other lesson learned is there are many factors that can affect a single category, a product, on how it's going to affect its supply chain. How is it going to be disrupted? And like, for example, if you look at the swine flu that happened in Singapore, or rather in our region. Swine flu happens in our region, but it affected us because it happens in the region where we import live pigs from. So whatever that happens somewhere else, it can also affect us, right? So we got to really learn fast, be able to see things, and how these issues are going to affect us. Many of those Singaporeans online will know somewhere in 2022, June, Malaysia decided to ban fresh chicken. That's one of our favorite delicacy in Singapore. And as a result, people rush to buy frozen chicken, right? And then for a while, frozen chicken also was in shortages. But what else did we learn from here if you want to have a business opportunity? We learned that although we are not in this business, as in a retail business, but what we learned from this chicken ban crisis is that we learned that Singaporeans, or for the matter, consumers are very quick to find replacement. So instead of buying a whole fresh chicken to make the soup, to make the chicken rice and stuff like that, we realized that there are various parts of components of chicken thus went increase in sales. Like, for example, chicken stock, other chicken parts that is on frozen chicken parts. So these are things that we need to be able to pick up and learn fast so that it provides business opportunity. And from this picture about COVID, you see what else do we learn from this COVID from a business point of view? Whenever there's a spike in COVID cases in Singapore, if you are able to look forward and anticipate, there are certain items that people tends to buy more. For example, again, this is the context of Singapore. When COVID numbers starts to go up, we realize that people tend to buy more coconut water, might buy certain sanitizers to clean their house and things like that. So this is a direct impact of COVID, and it provides either a business opportunity or for you to learn what actually affects potentially your business. So there's always this question, what's the difference between supply chain and logistics, right? So we over here, it's a very academic definition between supply chain and logistics. So I'm not going to bore you with the definition, you can see from there. But how do we see it over here at the Stats and Country Food? Supply chain or logistics, it is a global system. There are many, it moves from across the world. There are many hands that is going to touch on that one item that you're talking about. So, and because it cuts across the globe, there are many different rules governing it. Because of what we do in Country Food and Stats, it is actually beyond commercial or business. We can't afford to have no food for the aircraft that is waiting to take off. We can't have no food for the soldiers that are training in the military camps, right? So it is really beyond just commercial and business. There is a obligation. It's all about actions and work from end to end. There are many hands that needs to touch. Just within Country Foods, my department, I have 3 different departments, or rather 3 different teams. I manage the shipping, imports, I manage the warehouse, and I also manage the last mile delivery. So there are many different components that plays a part in this whole end-to-end. Surprises and disruptions are a norm. From global geopolitical issues to very, very localized issue that can disrupt your supply chain. For example, whenever there's a bad accident happening on the road, if my trucks are going to be caught on the road, the customers is not going to be happy because delivery is going to be late, right? And with all these things in mind, is in the end about making things happen, trying to know what can affect your supply chain and try to mitigate and put in place certain BCPs or alternative mitigation plans to make it happen. And in the end, when you're able to do this correctly, it's about making the end customer happy, or making or do our obligations to make sure that things don't get short in Singapore. There are many complexities that affect supply chain, or for the matter, logistics. The people is one most important factor as a consumer, as a customer, because the demands and the requests is ever changing, right? And we are dealing with logistics that transcend borders. Whether is it our supplies coming in by road from Malaysia or Thailand, Malaysia into Singapore, or our shipping from Brazil all the way to Singapore, and we have also fly in chill pork from Australia into Singapore. So it's really multi-modal and transcend borders, and all these are very interconnected. And over here, interconnected, I just want to highlight that one single issue can means that again down the line many things are affected. For example, if I have one vessel coming in that carries 30 of my containers, what it means is once the vessel berth in Singapore, I need to contend with 30 40-footer containers. I need to be able to discharge them from the port. I need to be able to bring them to the warehouse. I need to make sure that they're unstaffed on time, and I make sure that they go into proper storage without incurring unnecessary D&D costs, right? So for those in shipping will probably understand. You need a lot of transparency, or for the matter today, there's a lack of transparency because individual components are moving on their own. You lack the view unless you have a full view of what's happening at every segment. It is a challenge and it contributes to the complexity of the whole supply chain. And of course, in business, cost is one of the biggest concerns. I deal with supply chain, I deal with logistics. I am always a cost to the company. I have to make sure I manage all this well so that the company can grow. Disruption is a norm. I mentioned earlier about that. It is beyond business that we are doing here. There's an obligation. Technology and manpower is somewhat still a limitation in logistics, especially in Singapore. Manpower shortages, people with the changing demographics, people don't like to do this kind of job. How are we going to then use technology to help us to do some of these things? But some of these things on the last mile, especially like delivery, it is not still so permissive for us to do autonomous delivery and stuff like that because of safety concerns. So this contribute to the complexity of how to manage the last mile supply chain. So then what is our framework? So we focus a lot on the whole network and the purpose behind what we do. It is the people that we focus a lot. Everyone in the various departments must understand that their job connects to one another. they need to understand the whole flow of this supply chain, even within the company of Country Food. So at the various level, they need to be leader at their own domain. They need to understand the overall flow, and so therefore they are able to lead their people to make sure that they accomplish the various segment correctly, so that we will see the chain connected well seamlessly. Supply chain is tedious. People always think that supply chain is a piece of dirty work. It's 24/7. Just a week or so ago, I got to answer to a call that the reefer was malfunction in the middle of the night. These are the things that you have to contend with, because it happens every other day. So our people are the one that is working very hard on the ground. So we got to make sure that we look after our people, right? There is plans are all just plans. So we got to make sure that we have a good plan, and we must make sure that we exercise those plans, and our people must walk the plan that we talk about. Because if not, whenever there's a crisis that happens, more often or not, you are always caught off guard, and you do not know how to deal with this. So, and you're not able to rebound, like what Dr. Lee has mentioned. You're not able to rebound and make sure that the supply chain is quickly put back in place. So resilience is really the key, right? And in the end, if you look at the last few points, it's really about how we want to integrate OpsTech, and then plus managing again our people to make sure that they are savvy enough, and yet they are a leader at their own capacity, to make sure that they're able to drive the supply chain from one end to the other end. I'm going to touch on the next. So what do we do in Country Foods and SATS in mitigating these risks using data? Over here, we see things at a different level. So I will break them down into upstream, midstream. Actually, there's a lower end stream, and of course we encompass data analytics. And at the current moment, we're trying to embed AI in help us to make sure to decide to make certain decisions. Right. So I'm going to talk about these three things quickly. How we use certain platforms to help us to manage these things. We use Everstream. Everstream is a platform that what we use to help us to look at things really upstream across the world. If you look at the screen grab over here, so this is a live screenshot from the system. So all these little circles, if we were to be able to zoom in, these are the exact locations of our farms, or rather the farms that we buy from. It could also be the production plant. It also covers the seaport where exports are being done. So it tracks our places of interest, our nodes of interest, and it gives us almost real-time incident updates. And the system is able to give us more than 100 different important categories of incident, just to name a few. Outbreak of diseases is something that we track very often. If you look at the dashboard here, port strike, because whether is it a custom port strike, whether is it the stevedoring port strike, and different types of port strike affects whether your container is going to be stuck at a port. Maritime incidents, for example, if you still remember 2022, early 2022, how Ever Given was stuck in the Suez Canal, and how this give us that news in advance, so that we can quickly look at how is it going to affect us. The system pick up news globally. It translates that foreign language into a language that we understand, and it verifies the sources of the news, so that to make sure that there's no fake news. We have a lot of all these incidents every day, and we use them for trending and make certain analyses, so that it gives us a heads up for alternative preparation. I move on to the midstream. We use a system called a TRAMES. Tramez tracks vessels and live, as well as the containers that we have on the vessels, right? So it gives us a near live updates of the vessel ETA. I know, for example, in this dashboard that you are looking at to the left, just as an example, I have 5 vessels that are approaching Singapore. These are vessels that I track. And on these 5 vessels, these are the number of containers that are carrying on the vessel. So I can well make plans in advance to know that these vessels are going to reach Singapore. I can prepare my resources to make sure that I'm able to bring up these containers on time, truck it to the correct warehouse, make sure the unstaffing crews are there so that the containers do not stay on the ground longer than necessary. These are all very, very important to help us to minimize unnecessary costs that is being added to the cost of the goods. So this is a system that we use. Moving on to the next one. This is an in-house production. I have we train people that to be a little bit more savvy in tech. We do our own data analytics. We pull data from our sales. We pull data from the dashboards that I shown earlier, whether is it from the shipping, whether is it from Everstream, and then we trend the issue. So it helps us to see really earlier. It makes things that are not obvious to be more obvious, so that it helps us to identify what are the root issues faster, so that we can make business decisions faster than the rest. We are looking at working with all these so-called platform owners that we subscribe to, how to moving forward, how to embed AI tools within the system to give us notification earlier and to give us alternatives so that we can make decisions faster than the rest, and so that we have a business competitive edge over the rest. And of course, today the biggest challenge is the lack of the relevant data, because as long as you have all the relevant data that you need, whether is it internally or externally, Gen AI will then be able to even be used to make better analysis and help us to plan some of this and for us to make business decisions better than the rest. So, yeah, that's my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ng. I think your presentation has clearly outlined to us the ability of putting that into practice in a situation whereby very dynamic. And in your specific area, because it's all cold chain, food logistics, and all the things could be very much disruptive. So it is very, very vivid, and you put it in a very clear, visualized manner to us. And one of your slides, which I particularly like, is all the people in the country are looking to food as one of the most important things. So that's something. So I hand over to Eddie with the balance of time, that he's going to talk about how to implement and train and put it into practice with examples. Eddie, over to you.
Okay, yeah, I hope you guys can hear me. Right, thanks, Dr. Lee and Mr. Ng. I think they've given a very good idea of what supply chain resilience is all about. What I'd like to share a little bit is about how machine learning in logistics, right, and how is that relevant to all of us. And I think if you look at machine learning, is basically another branch of AI. Where basically we use algorithms, to calculate and also make informed decisions. And the type of machine learning, there are different types of machine learning. But why is it important for us in logistics, right? It is because in logistics today, as what Mr. Ng has shared, we work with a lot of huge data sets, and we often need to meet real-time decisions based off of incidents that potentially we don't see as impacting us. So again, these are the kind of machine learning tools, and I'll go through them, what those are. And of course, basically what we're trying to do is to improve the accuracy, the efficiency, as well as resilience in our supply chains. So, I will not go very much into the three types when you talk about supervised learning, where we attach labels to data, where we can do a lot of demand forecasting, predictive maintenance. Then, of course, there are the other ones, the unsupervised learning, where they are good for spotting anomalies, clustering, segmentation, and then, of course, the reinforcement learning, where we look at, optimization of the supply chain. So, but what is important if we look at this is, sorry. Okay, so I think both speakers have spoken about scenario planning, and even in our last webinar in April, we spoke at length about digital twin technology and machine learning. I think in as far as digital twin is concerned, this, for the lack of a better word, this is what we would have called scenario planning many moons ago. But digital twin, of course, is now a virtual representation of our current business model. And with large data sets, we are able to use this data to help us identify patterns, provide insights, and look and see how certain events that happen within our sphere can actually impact our daily operations. So if you look at that, one of the retailers, someone like an Amazon as an example, today already use machine learning to predict demand, right? And where to place products in which warehouse, so that they can respond faster to customers. Now, in the case of Country Foods, okay, they also use machine learning to predict demand based on past data sets. Yeah, but not only past data, but also use real-time data to fit into their model, right? To see how that's going to impact them, right? So today, a lot of carriers, people like Maersk as an example, use machine learning to do their forecasting for global trade, looking at how to position ship and and all their scheduling, right? Basically, what they're trying to do is to prevent stock out and also to better distribute inventory within their supply chain. Now, the other one is looking at, DHL, for example, uses machine learning to do route optimization, right? And as well as dynamic scheduling for their trucks, right? We also look at people like UPS using predictive maintenance, using machine learning to do predictive maintenance, as well as Rolls-Royce looking at the aircraft engines and how the data sets can help them do predictive maintenance. The other thing that most of you probably, if you are a practitioner in the field, will realize today, a lot of our warehouses are already quite automated, right? And if you go and check on the website, you look at Alibaba, you look at many companies, they're already using robotics. But robotics is only one part of it, right? What is more important is that the built-in machine learning algorithms to help improve order processing, reduce human error, and of course, to enhance safety compliance. So, but what I'd like to focus today, and I think many of our participants in today's webinar will ask, hey, we are not big MNCs and we may not have the budget to go big into AI. What I would say really is take small steps, right? Start with small steps. Start with some form of automation before you take the big leap into AI and robotics, machine learning, start with the small steps first, because once you build that up, people see the benefit, companies do see the benefit. That's where they start to say, hey, maybe it's time to take that leap forward. So the other thing, it's also remember the people, the process, the technology has to go together. So it's not all about technology at the end of the day, right? You have to look whether the people are ready for change. That's number one. Number two, is the process optimal in the first place? So we always say lean before automation. So that's something that to think about. And lastly, of course, talk about change management. The people part is really, really important. What I will say then, what are the final thoughts? It's in today's world, in logistics and supply chain, we work with a lot of data, and the only way forward really is using that data to help us make better decisions, right? And today, if you look back, say 5 years, you've not heard of the word digital twin. We don't even have this thing called AI or Gen AI for that matter. But today, it is something that we can't do without, right? So the cloud infrastructure is there. There are a lot of cross-functional discipline that we need to look at. And I think the only way forward really is for us to embrace technology and see how that can help us move forward. All right. So that's all I have. Thanks, Edward. And
Thank you, Eddie. Very, very informative in the way how you picture that on the path going forward of how company can implement that irrespective of MNC or SMEs. Because what we want to do, you put it very clearly, is what is the first step? After you make the first step, you have demonstrated success and you also build confidence within the organization. And earlier, both Mr. Ng and Dr. Lee talk about the human factor in making this possible, because all of these things you require, because particularly from the work example that Mr. Ng talked about, is when you have a team working together, you have the tool helping the team to be more efficient, more agile and responsive to situation. That's very clear. So I think since Eddie, you were just wrapping up on this, there's a question you and I both picked up yesterday from the Q&A board, which is during the registration. Why don't you take that first, and then I'll have two other questions, one for Dr. Lee and one for Mr. Ng from the chat board.
Sure. Thanks, Edward. I think the question was around, the wide difference that exists within the IT department's maturity in logistics company, right? How do we see that? And I think, it is correct. In any company, you need to have forward-looking leaders in any company, right? When we talk about undertaking change management. So in one of my previous roles, we had business analysts who will work with internal and external customers to scope and map out what those requirements are, and then translate them to the IT department, right? So I do agree that not all in-house IT departments may have that necessary skill sets to take on such a journey, especially when AI is really something that is quite recent. So what is most important is to stay customer centric, because the customers will drive your business operations. And once you understand that, then we will always go back and look at the people, the process, the technology, and how that what technology we have to embrace basically to get to the customer's requirements. So I think that's something, what the question was, is that the IT department and the business reality don't, that cycle is not always in sync. And I agree with that. But what I think is more important is if we can get ourselves grounded on being customer centric, we should be able to get to where we need to be.
Thank you, Eddie. And that's relating to, very similar to a question raised by Adrich Salim to Dr. Lee. The question was, how do we take into measure variables like human resources, third party, and performance into machine learning to help with resilience? Dr. Lee.
Okay, I think it's a very good question. And also organizational resilience, human resource resilience is also very important. Although just now we talk about many on technology and in processing supply chains, I think for the human resource organization resilience, we can follow a similar route. We need to collect the important data on the important metrics. For example, like staff availability ratio, turnover rate, skills, turnover rate, productivities. And once we get the data, we can do data analytics and try to make predictions. And also for supplier is the same. So we have collect the important data on supplier's performance, like delivery time, whether it's delayed or not, and quality and lead time, right? And after we get this important data, we can do data analytics. And I just happen to have this ongoing projects. Maybe I want to share a bit on the suppliers risk assessment and predictions. Can I do that? Okay, so let me share. Currently, I just have ongoing projects working on supplier data, but do a supplier data assessment and try to make predictions. As you can see here is the raw data I'm working on. There are many raw data considering on days of shipping, benefit per order, sales, customer, delivery status, things like this. We have like over 20 or 30 features of the data. And what we can do is try to make analysis based on the data. For example, we can do a data analysis. First, we try to load the data into our data analytics model. We try to visualize data by seeing which are the most important features that can affect supplier performance, like late delivery. And then finally, we can try to do some feature engineering to extract the most important features and do some preparation of data. And finally, we can use our machine learning model, like the decision tree, random forest, and XGBoost to try to make predictions based on the features. So that's typically how we can use data analytics to do supplier risk assessment and supplier risk prediction.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you, Dr. Lee. In the sense of how you draw that.
Yeah.
And that's go quite nicely to a question from Tim Foot to Mr. Ng. And the question, in the case of disease incidents shutting down meat shipments, is there a higher frequency for this to happen today versus in the past?
Well, so to Tim, the issue is not about shutting down the meat shipments. So whether the shipments continues is purely a importing countries' food regulation. So, for example, China places a 90 days import ban for the entire Brazil. Japan places a 60 days on the import ban for poultry because of the recent bird flu in Brazil. But in Singapore, we don't place a country-wide ban. So we have a predefined factors. That means we only look at what is within 10 kilometers of radius of the affected farm, and things are still allowed to come in from places that are not affected. So the whether is it being shut down is really a question of the importing countries' food regulation. Is there a higher frequency for these diseases to happen? I do not think so. They are the same diseases, but if you look at trending, indeed, in the last 2 years, these diseases, just like COVID, they mutate, they become stronger. Scientists are catching up to understand how are they being mutated and how to prevent them. It is recorded that for the first time in history, last year, even the penguins in the South Pole are being affected with bird flu. So things are evolving. We do such trending and we study them so that we will continue to know in advance when incidents came out from Everstream, we will start to understand what is it going to affect moving forward so that we can make preparations for those incidents that's going to happen. I hope that answers the question.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Ng. I'm looking at time. I'll give one more question and then I'll ask the speaker to use a 1-minute wrap up on the things you want our participant to take away. So this question is, what are the major constraints to be expected in implementing digitalization strategy? So can I have Mr. Ng address that, and then Dr. Lee, and then Eddie very quickly to address this question.
So I'll go first. So from our perspective, major constraint in implementing data, or rather resiliency in supply chain, is really the lack of data. I mean, it is not difficult to get experts to come in to help us to put the dashboards together and things like that. But I think for us, the biggest challenge, if you want to make an assessment from an incident, how is it going to affect us? Really, the biggest problem today that is we lack data. And sometimes it's also not an issue of whether you are willing to pay for the data, because there are many factors that can potentially affect a supply chain issue. So, in my opinion, getting a comprehensive set of data for you to make the correct assessment in terms of preventing that the supply chain issues is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing today.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Lee?
Okay, my personal recommendation should be each organization or company should know clearly what is the objective of leveraging or using this digitalization, AI technologies into supply chain resilience, because we have, as you can see, the entire general framework has so many aspects. So what is the aspects, the capability you need most? That's very important. That's why I suggest companies to do a assessment before they take any specific investment on it.
Yep,
Thanks.
good point. Eddie?
Well, thanks. I think Mr. Ng and Dr. Lee mentioned it, right? I think the data is very important, but what a lot of companies grapple with the difficulty is because they're operating across disparate systems. So for instance, freight forwarding system, transport management system could be not integrated, say, with warehouse management, or for that matter, custom declaration. So these are the core disparate systems that are not integrated. So they need first to find, like what Dr. Lee mentioned, what is it that you want out of the system? And once you understand that, then I think you know what the next steps are. But it's also important finally to take that step forward.
Thank you, Eddie. I think we absolutely have benefited tremendously from our speakers, and I would really like to take this opportunity to thank all the speakers and the participants for joining this session. I hope the information shared is particularly beneficial, and the key takeaway from the last comment is it really is putting together the human factor, seeing the path going forward, what you need to accomplish and deliver, and be able to use and leverage the technology, data, and all that to help the human being and the leader and the people at work to be able to harness all these together. So it's, as what I said at the start, it's not the AI or digitalization going to take away my job. It's the person or the company able to leverage this information effectively and to the advantage of driving the supply chain resilience, are able to replace me or the company organization who failed to do that. It's really like a dragon boat race that whichever has been able to use the tool effectively is able to win, and also able to predict and prevent disaster coming forward. So I thank the speaker, Dr. Lee Dong, Mr. Ng Xing Tian, as well as Eddie Singh for today's very insightful sharing and benefit. Like many questions raised by the participant in the chat box, these slides will be available in our CILT knowledge archive for the members to access. So if you have yet to join as a member, please sign up very quickly as a CILT member for all of that, because we are a non-profit at the same time as an education organization. And besides this, besides all these questions we address, and some of you have, thank you for putting in your question and comment while you do the registration. I have extended that to all our speakers. They will pen down the response and we'll put it back into the written in response to all of you. So thanks again. I just want to prelude our session number 3, which is the final session of this series, Sustainable Supply Chain Through Digital Solutions. Is planned for June the 19th. It's also on a Thursday morning, same time. So more information will be coming forward very quickly. And please look out to our CILT Singapore website for all this information. So thank you again. Sorry, overrun by 4 minutes, but it is a very rich and thankful session to all our speakers and to all of those all of you who join us from across the continents to join us even at the very early hour of your day. So thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you all at the next session. Have a good Thursday morning.